Yeah, come on. Some knowledge in your ears now. Salmon of knowledge is a salmon of knowledge. Gonna learn lots of things like you were in college. Gonna learn how to make perfect bowls of porridge and other things that rhyme with college and knowledge. Like porridge is a thing that rhymes with those words, but it's hard to get things that rhyme with those words. It's a podcast, Edwin Salmon of Knowledge podcast.
Hey, Salmon Skins, welcome to an extra special episode of Edwin Salmon of Knowledge. This is an episode that I put out on my Patreon page as an extra episode because I thought it was a little bit too nichey for everyone, because it's me just kind of shiting on about how much I love Radiohead. That's right, middle-aged white straight male likes white rock band. So basic. But look, I grew up with these guys. We lived in the same house. It's very awkward. We don't really talk that much anymore. I was never that into them at first, and I was like, yeah, fair enough. What are you called? On a Friday. Oh, that's a lame name. How'd you come up with that name? And they're like, that's the day we record. Oh yeah, you're up there with one of my other favourite bands, Tuesday Afternoon. How about Thursday Morning? I love their jams, and so on. So I taunted them for many years until they just got fed up with it and moved out of the house. And initially I was like much happier because it was quieter without a 5-piece band rehearsing all the time. But after a while, I grew to miss their tunes and banter and slightly posh English ways. But they wouldn't come back. They're like, we're doing fine actually. We're on tour supporting Alanis Morissette, and we're waiting for our album to drop, our second album to drop. And I was like, oh, fair enough, well done. She's good. And they were like, yeah, we're being cool and aloof with her because we probably think we're better than her, and we will prove to be one of the greatest bands of all time. We're calling her Alan Norris. And I was like, that's not their name. And they said, because they all speak with one hive voice. I didn't speak to Ed or Colin or Phil or Tom or Johnny. I just spoke to the collective head. They all converge into one giant muso head, kind of like the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, but if they were a rock band from England. And they're like, we're going to hit it big. All right, Alan, we're on our way. And she was like, I'm not Alan. That was a little bit wanky of them, I suppose. But that's the thing. I love Radiohead so much, I never ever want to meet them. I don't want to meet. I think I'd probably try and do that cool thing if I ever saw any of the members of Radiohead. I'd just go up and say, thank you, and walk off. Because I guess some people come up and they go, oh my God, and start shaking and crying, and you changed my life and all this kind of stuff. And I wouldn't say they changed my life. They got me big into music. I think it's the reason I wanted to be in a band, which I was in a couple of bands. I fronted a band called the Karachi Monkeys. Why Karachi, you say? I heard it in a geography class in secondary school, going through, it's in Pakistan, I believe, and just Karachi. I just like the name, and I've always liked monkeys. And we did some covers. We did the Bends. Where do we go from here? The words are coming out all weird. Ooh, I'm speaking strange words, 'cause I'm ugly, or whatever the lyrics were. It was all about being a creep, and so on and so forth. And so on and so forth would be a great name for an album. A rambling folk album. But yeah, I was in a few bands, didn't work out, didn't become a famous rock star, but I just like the therapy you get from playing music with people. That flow that you get in your brain where it just sort of you stop thinking about everything and you're just playing the music and kind of time stands still, and if there's like 3 or 4 or 5 of you and you're all playing the same song, obviously it'd sound fucking awful if everyone was playing a different song, but you're all just on the same groove, for want of a better non sort of 60s word. But yeah, you're all hitting the same groove, and it's 5 people in pursuit of a common goal that's bigger than themselves. And it's nice. It's like listening to music or playing music, and I'm going to play a version of Idiotech at the end of this. So this is my long rambling introduction to this extra episode that was available on my Patreon. I'm putting it out now with this intro for you guys as a regular episode in the lead up to my podcast becoming a year old in a couple of days' time. A year since I put out the first episode. So I guess I'll record some sort of episode spectacular to have out for that day, and a regular one for the regular days. If you want to become a patron, you can go to Edwin Salmon of Knowledge on Patreon, and you can give a little for as long as you want, or you can give nothing. But if you give nothing, you'll get nothing. If you give something, you'll receive extra episodes, extra songs that I've put up that I don't want the public to hear, and a lot of my writing is up there. A lot of the book that I'm writing right now, after I've finished doing this intro and recording the song that you hear at the end. So if you don't want to do that, that's fine. Thanks for listening. Recommend me, follow me, like and subscribe, leave a review, as long as it's favorable, and enjoy the episode. Hey, Salmon Skins. Welcome to an extra episode just for you, where I will talk about my love of Radiohead. Because today, on the 2nd of October, 2020, it's 20 years since Kid A was released, which makes me feel very, very old. So I might talk a little bit about music, specifically my relationship with Radiohead. Wait, no, don't stop. Don't turn it off. So I have a kind of a running joke. It's not really a running joke where I basically describe myself as a muso to Cara, and she quite rightly has never let it lie. I'm not like a musical snob or a music Nazi. I'm not the sort of person who will take over the music at a party or a bar mitzvah or a wedding, but I have done that. Not at a bar mitzvah, because I've never been to a bar mitzvah. I can't imagine there's a DJ pumping out tunes, but I've taken over music at parties and stuff. I've just, I'll just queue up a couple of choice bangers here for everyone to pump their fists in the air to. But I do love music. It's very, very important to me. It was extremely important to me when I was going through treatment for cancer, just as a way to escape reality, and not like in a ignoring reality, just escaping it for a brief period of time. And I've got some associations with certain songs, like, Linger by the Cranberries. I'm such a... See if I can pick it out in the ukulele. Fool for you. You got me wrapped around your finger. Do you have to let it linger? Do you have to? Do you have to? Do you have to let it linger? Oh, wow. I thought... That's not the chords. Thought the world of you. I thought nothing could go wrong, but I was wrong. I was wrong, and you, if you would return, don't let it fade, don't let it burn, and turn out in you. Just your attitude is tearing me apart, is ruining everything I knew. So that's the Cranberries' Linger being butchered by me. I found some of the chords there, but not all of the chords. I'm so sorry. But that reminds me of being 16 years old, because I went to Limerick to my brother's gaff, because he was in college in the University of Limerick, my older brother Julian. And we were smoking hash that weekend. It was a big time for hash. This was before the ecstasy waterfall of the 90s. Don't go chasing ecstasy. Please stick to the alcohol and hash that you're used to. I don't know if you'll take a half pill or a full pill, but you'll be chewing your face. And everyone used to sing that song. But this was pre that. And I remember going down there and, Julian was always the sort of, he was a couple of years older. He was, into music before myself and my younger brother, Jonathan, who really has turned me on to a lot of music that I wouldn't sort of normally listen to. Your, Aphex Twins and your sort of brain dance music, as it's known. And I think it's called brain dance because it just has that effect, either negative or positive effect on people, where they'll go, "Oh God, my brain," or "Oh yeah, my brain." So it has that both good and bad reactions, but primarily focused in the dance centers of the brain, the pre-free frontal lobex of the brain. Now, I'm no brain scientist, but I am a muso, self-appointed muso. Well, I'm not really a muso. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I just could never really get. There's a lot of people that I haven't really listened to, like, what's his name? Tom Waits. I remember having a conversation with a girl when I was about 18 or 19, and she mentioned Tom Waits, and I was like, yeah, I like Tom Waits. Basically, I like anything that you like. And then she proceeded to ask me what my favorite, albums were and all this kind of stuff. And it became immediately and embarrassingly clear that I was just spoofing in order to try and get into this girl's good graces. And it was embarrassing. I think I went red-faced. I was embarrassed. But I remember Julian listening to The Cure. And I've only really started getting into The Cure maybe in the last 5 or 6 years. In fact, during the early days and months of lockdown, I found myself for like a week and a half just viewing music on YouTube and stuff. But like live music. I watched all of The Cure's set from Glastonbury of like last year or the year before, something. It was like a recent thing. And just the scope and sound of the music was incredible, because a lot of people just know Friday I'm in Love and Love Cats and all that kind of stuff, but Julian was big into them. I remember he went to see them in Italy when he was in France for a year studying, and I was I'd say I was probably, if he was 19, I would have been like 16, 17, or maybe a little bit younger when he was starting to get into cool tunes. And I remember saying to him, I don't really like The Cure. And him saying, yeah, I used to say that when I was your age too. And looking back on it now, it's probably the most condescending, wanky muso thing he could have said at that point. But I have to say, and I will say, because I'm talking to you now, that Julian is the reason I got into Radiohead. Because the first Radiohead stuff I ever heard, I think I was aware of Creep. When I was here before, could look you in the eye, and I'd heard that song. I'd heard some of that album, which is not good. The first gig I ever went to was Radiohead, but the first album I ever heard was The Bends, And I remember putting it on a CD player that was connected to speakers. And we didn't have, MP3s. We didn't have mini discs, which were my favorite mode of listening to music on the go. Not a Walkman or a CD Walkman. Like, it's hilarious now that, now on my phone I have Spotify. I have a Spotify account that I pay for every month because I need it. I need the music. It's not a luxury item. It's a necessity for me to have Spotify and to have some streaming services so I can watch movies and TV shows. Those things are absolutely necessary. Otherwise, I'd go crazy. And if I had to choose one or the other, I'd probably go, well, I don't know. It's like that sort of thing of if you would go deaf or blind, like you're given an option in some hypothetical situation where someone's going to put hot needles in either your ears or your eyes. I'd probably say I don't want any needles near me. But if you could just go like that and go blind or deaf, I think I'd probably go blind because at least I could hear music. And music is that thing where you can just switch off. Like I used to do when I was sick, I'd play an album, I'd listen to it, and I'd close my eyes and I'd just get transported to another place. And there was one album in particular when I was sick that I can't listen to now. And it's the Arcade Fire album. What's that album called? Yeah, Reflector. That album just it seemed to be written for me because there's lyrics in it that seem very applicable to my situation. And now, because I listen to that song in a kind of getting me through it motivational way, but now when I listen back to it, I'm just transported back to that time.
Seems so important now, like you will get over. Seems so important now, like you will get over. When you get over, when you get older, you will remember like it was so important now. Seems like a big deal now, like you will get over. Seems like a big deal now, like you will get over. When you get over, when you get older, then you will discover that it's never over.
So I have not listened to that album since it came out, because it came out around the time I was sick, and I was a fan of Arcade Fire. I mean, I still am. I didn't think much of their last album. Putting on my muso hat, I didn't think much of their last album, Everything Now or whatever it was. Yeah, not a fan of that. Couple of good tunes in it, but as a complete album, it didn't really hold together. And that's the difference between a great band and not a great band, is a complete album. And the first time I ever heard Radiohead was the Bends. I listened to the Bends, but I remember just picking out High and Dry, and that was the song that I listened to. And I listened to High and Dry constantly on repeat, as in I'd put on the album and just skip to that song and then press the repeat button on the CD player. And that became a kind of obsessive song for me. And then eventually I must have forgotten to press the repeat button, and I just moved on to the rest of the album. So then I heard the whole album and I was like, this is a really good album. And I remember being in pubs, underage drinking. This is kind of just before I was like 17, and some of my friends had turned 18, and they'd gone from drinking in fields to drinking in the pub. And I kind of preferred drinking in the fields to the pub because there was too many distractions. But one good thing they had was they had a jukebox. And I remember one of my friends putting money in the jukebox and saying, here, what song will I play? And I said, put on Radiohead. And he said, something from the Bends. I went, yeah. And he said, which track? And I said, any track, doesn't matter. They're all good. Now, there are some tracks that I would skip these days, and there's some tracks I enjoy more than others. But then, obviously, OK Computer became a big thing. I remember seeing Paranoid Android, them performing it in 97 on Jules Holland, and it was just unbelievable. And that album was fantastic. And the first gig I ever saw was in Galway, the Big Day Out, and the Galway Racecourse, I believe. And Julian was there with someone who is now Noddy's wife. And I remember drinking in Eyre Square, and we were in a pub, and they were playing like Radiohead songs, and I think the Divine Comedy, Neil Hannon were support. We missed them. We saw Nina Cherry, who was fantastic, and I remember they did an unbelievably good version of Crosstown Traffic by Jimi Hendrix, which was unbelievable. And then Radiohead played, and Tom York seemed very small. He was wearing like combat fatigues. Just his pants were like combat fatigues, and he was wearing a t-shirt or whatever. But he seemed like drunk or high or something. And they played, because they only had 2 albums. They only had the Bends, and they had Pablo Honey, their debut album, their stunning debut album, which has songs like "I'm Not a Vegetable." And other songs that aren't very good. So the difference between, because they played a lot of that album, and I think that was the first and only time I'd heard a lot of those songs, because they played very little from Pablo Honey. In fact, they only occasionally play Creep. And I've seen Radiohead enough times, I've heard Creep a couple of times, and whenever they do play Creep, I always turn to whomever I'm with, which is usually my younger brother, Johnny. We've seen him a good few times, and myself and Johnny and Julian saw them on their last tour. We saw them twice. Saw them in Florence, and then because we wanted to see them in another country and have a little holiday, and then we came back, and then the week of their gig in Dublin, in the Point, I refuse to call it the 3 Arena or whatever the hell it is, in the Point, we got tickets for that. So that was the first time I'd ever seen them twice on the same tour, which means I'm a real head, which is what Radiohead fans are called. They're called heads, are they? I don't know. I'm just a fan. But Kid A. Kid A was the one where, Tom York went a little bit overboard. The whole band were under a lot of pressure, and like now it's being written up as this sort of precursor to 2020, as in 20 years ago with OK Computer and with Kid A, the follow-up in 2000, they kind of predicted the fall of everything, politics, and there's some choice lyrics in some of their songs that really do reflect the now. And one of those songs I thought I might actually play for you if you let me. And I do remember the first time I ever heard Kid A, there was, well, not all of it, but Dave Fanning was playing some tracks from the album on his show, and it was like the national anthem was played, I think Everything in Its Right Place was played. I do remember the national anthem being played because the national anthem is this kind of funky jazz rock tune that has this kind of weird horn section that comes in and gets kind of crazy towards the end. It kind of sounds like a bunch of elephants involved in some sort of car crash, but it sounds fantastic. And it ends with this, brrr of brass and stuff, and then this little kind of classical music piece comes over the end. It's a crazy song, and just has this driving do doom doom da doom 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 da doom 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 da doom 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 doom, and I should probably just play these over it. There it is. And just fantastic. And Dave Fanning comes in at the end and is like, yeah, there you go, beats Our Own Naveen any day of the week. And I always remember him saying that. Because Dave Fanning was the only journalist to interview Radiohead when Kid A was released. Because Kid A was released without any press tour. They did their own little kind of mini tour that was not corporate sponsored. They brought a big top tent around, and I saw them on that tour on Tom York's birthday, which they released during lockdown. They released a whole load of their archived gigs that they had recorded, one of them being that gig in Punchestown, and it was Tom's birthday, and we all sang happy birthday to Tommy. And he's like 51. I guess he was 31 at the time. He's 51 now, so yeah, his 31st birthday. Jesus Christ. God. So it's amazing how old everyone is now compared to how young they were before. That's what I'm being amazed at, in that that's how my brain is working right now. And it was, he was the only European journalist that they wanted to talk to, which, my respect for Dave Fanning went right up. And then years later, through comedy, I've been on with Dave Fanning on radio a couple of times, talking about love and romance and other various things. And I've met him a few times at the Ivy Gardens Comedy Festival that usually takes place at the end of July. Didn't this year, obviously, due to COVID, but I remember him saying hello to me and me going over and chatting to him, and him saying, I was saying, well, what have you seen comedy-wise? And he said, I'm not really a fan of comedy. And I said, well, Dave, you're in the wrong place. Ho-ho! And he didn't really laugh. But so that's my Radiohead love. I just love him. I love Tom York's voice. I love how different they got, how amazing some of their later stuff is, how basic and just rock and roll their early stuff is. It's like they went from sort of grungy rock to electronic experimental. And Kid A, the first few times I heard it, there was some standout stuff, but it kind of got me into the notion of this thing of the first time you listen to an album, if you instantly like it, if you instantly love it, it's like a bad sign because you'll grow tired of it. You have to kind of, because, with every, and it's kind of true of every Radiohead album, and some albums I like more than others. A Moon-Shaped Pool, their last album, there's some wonderful, wonderful tracks on that. There's some tracks on it that I'm not that fussed about. But Kid A, OK Computer, Kid A, are definitely two albums that from start to finish are incredible and have such different, like How to Disappear Completely, which is the only kind of standard guitar, drums, rock song, I guess, but it's a ballad that is completely different to something like Idiotech, which is this sort of what if Radiohead tried to do a dance banger. And that's what the song is. But Idiotech especially contains some very choice lyrics that are as inappropriate today as they were then. That was it. That was the episode. Thanks so much for listening. Once again, my Patreon is Edwin Salmon of Knowledge. It's just the name of the podcast. I also have a podcast called Reviewables and a new podcast called the Cine Stream Club that I do with Trevor Brown and Andrea Farrell and sometimes special guests. I don't know if this episode has convinced you to listen to Radiohead. If you've never listened to them, you might want to try and give them a go. Who knows? All I can say is this is my very niche episode that probably will suit the demographic that listens to my show. So, ending on a tune, here is my troubadour version of Idiotech. Take it away, me. Who's in a bunker? Who's in a bunker? Women and children first, and the children first, and the children. I laugh until my head comes off. I swallow till I burst, until I burst, until I. Who's in a bunker? Who's in a bunker? I've seen too much, you haven't seen enough, you haven't seen it. I laugh until my head comes off. Women and children first, and children first, and children. Here I'm allowed everything all of the time. Here I'm allowed everything all of the time. Ice Age coming, Ice Age coming. Let me hear both sides, let me hear both sides, won't you let me? Ice Age coming, Ice Age coming. Throw it on the fire, throw it on the fire, throw it on the. We're not scaremongering. This is really happening, happening. We're not scaremongering. This is really happening, happening. And mobiles chirping, mobiles working. Take the money and run, take the money and run, take the money. Here I'm allowed everything all of the time. Here I'm allowed everything all of the time. Everything all of the time. Here I'm allowed everything all of the time. Salmon of knowledge, it's the 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 salmon of knowledge podcast.